I'd just like to make a few introductory remarks, as I usually do in these spotlight sessions, because we're doing these spotlight sessions as part of the Inclusive Leadership Institute. And today's session will be around values and the importance of moving beyond values. And to me, this is actually a topic very close to my heart, because leaders increasingly understand that it is important to build culture. You know, that culture is something that is part of their domain. At the same time, then, usually what leaders do, what I see a lot of leaders do, is say, okay, we do our culture work, so let's talk about values. You know, and then when we have our values, and then we are kind of done with the culture work. So many organizations are focusing on values, and values are actually also really important. I just came out of a call with a company there where there is a deep attachment to the values that the company just had. And so when it comes to building cultures, when it comes to building inclusive cultures, when it comes to practicing the art and science of inclusive leadership, we need to evaluate and talk about values a bit. And values may not quite be enough. But anyway, I'm already getting into the topic. And it's really a pleasure, a humongous pleasure of mine to invite Mark Samuel to be the feature of this spotlight session. Mark is someone that has been a mentor of mine, a great colleague, and somebody that I turn to a lot when it comes to questions of culture. And his work is transformational to how leaders view culture, pursue the act of building culture. And I think he's equally frustrated sometimes when the conversation centers around values. But anyway, without further ado, let me turn it over to Mark. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Joerg. And it's just an honor to be part of inclusive leadership and be with your team. It's been such a delight. Talk about, demonstrating inclusive leadership. Your entire team does that. And, one of the things everybody to just notice is just how well put these slides are, because it was Joerg's team that did it, with Christine and Kristen on the team, and they just have a great team. So anyway, I'm excited about this topic. It's funny, Joerg, when you talk about culture as being so important, and yet the way I continue to hear people talk about culture as if it's separate from the business. It's like, oh, we work on our business and then we work on our culture. And what I want to present today is there is no difference. Culture is your business, and it's actually integrated directly, not indirectly. So we're going to get into that. I can't wait. So I'm just going to, start with why culture has become so important these days. It's why culture, why now? And the answer is, in a sense, obvious. It's the only viable solution for what we're witnessing in the world, and it's all over the world. All my international clients and national clients are experiencing the same thing. That great resignation. People are leaving in droves. The healthcare industry, in particular, medical centers, are just suffering right now from the lack of nurses that are that are employed. They're honestly leaving. Then you've got this whole new concept of quiet quitting. Oh my gosh. That's a disaster. And it's not a disaster just for the businesses where people are thinking that the only way out of all the overwhelm that's going on is just do the least possible to keep your job. It's actually a disaster for the individuals themselves. It's one of the worst things you can do, because it really gets at your own integrity. It undermines your confidence. Ultimately, it's just not a great solution, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And then of course, there's addressing all the change that's going on right now. I mean, the vast change that's happened starting with the pandemic of COVID, but now we're seeing it with the supply chain issues. We're seeing it with the, political situation, the wars that are in the world. All of these things are driving change at multiple levels. And what's happening is all of that pressure is causing people to question their jobs, leave their jobs. And when they do leave, it's generally based on compensation. Where literally, I was talking with the head of HR for an organization. She was saying people are leaving for 10 cents an hour. Like, oh my gosh, well then here's the problem with that. If I then increase compensation to attract more people, and then the organization next to me or my competition increases theirs, at what point does that end? Like, you at some point are going to have resource constraints. You just can't afford to keep raising fees, and or compensation. And I'm not suggesting that we don't need to raise people's salaries. They are too low relative to the gains that many businesses are experiencing. Like, that's a whole nother topic when you start thinking that, businesses are improving profits on average by 53%, while employees are gaining 5 to 7%. There's obviously another issue here that's not part of our topic, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, what about those organizations that don't have that level of profitability? Compensation can't be the answer. That's why you have to create a culture that attracts high performers and retains them so that people don't want to leave. That's the issue. And then the question becomes, how do you do that? And I was faced with this situation some time ago with working with the UC Berkeley's IT organization. It was a really interesting situation because if their IT organization is still controlled by government compensation. So it's a state government organization. So, and where UC Berkeley is located is right in the middle of the Silicon Valley. So now all of a sudden you've got your biggest high-tech companies, many of which we know the names of, like Apple, Hewlett Packard, many that we don't, that are just small. But the one thing that they all have in common is they were paying double the salaries with a lot more prestige. So than what UC Berkeley could pay their IT people. So they were dealing with a major shortage. If they happened to bring someone in that was good, they were gone in no time. And so the organization came to me and said, we need to create a culture that, retains people so that we're not losing our best talent to higher compensation. Okay, that seemed reasonable. But here was their next statement. And that is, we're going to do it by instilling new values to improve the culture. And they literally presented me the 8 values that they had, and I honestly don't remember them now, but I just asked one question. I said, how many of these values do you, as an exec, as a leadership team, how many of these values do you actually demonstrate consistently? Well, all of a sudden, everybody's looking at each other and going, well, not many. And I go, okay, so great. So at least the good news is you own the fact that these are great values. You all believe in them. You all voted for them. You took 3 months to come up with the 8 that you chose. But in reality, you don't actually demonstrate these values yourselves. And I said to them one thing. I said, if you don't demonstrate them, what makes you think your people are going to demonstrate them? And if none of you are demonstrating them, what's going to change in your culture? And it literally took pause because they were so committed to thinking that their chosen 8 values are going to make the difference. Now, don't get me wrong. there are certain companies and certain organizations that know how to create those values that will make a difference and knows how to drive them. And I know one of those companies, HPWP as an example does that, and they do it extremely well, and their work is excellent, and I trust their work. So it's not that you can't do it, but generally speaking, without knowing how to do that, it can take a long time to get any kind of result. And it's not just by the organization choosing their 8 values. So what did I propose to them instead? I said, let's create a picture of success. Let's start there. Let's say, what do you want to look like a year from now that you don't look like today in your culture? Like, what does that actually mean? And what would people be doing differently? What are the cross-functional team habits that would manifest? Like things like breaking down silo behavior. I still see silos in most organizations I work with. And I can tell you right now, if you've got silos, I don't care what you're saying about inclusivity. I don't care what you're saying about communication. I don't care what you're saying about teamwork. You don't have it, and you can't have it, because as long as you're in silos, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And it brings up all sorts of issues around planning, coordination, etc. So how can you possibly have inclusive planning if you've got silos that are operating separately? How do you solve problems that are inherently cross-functional when people are working in silos? So all of these things become issues around, again, you can have the values, but if you're not structured well, if you don't have certain habits in place, it doesn't matter. And here's the thing that was so great. Once we created this, and once they identified, here's the habits, and we can hold each other accountable for those habits that affect our work, it can make a huge difference. Literally 1 year later, their culture changed so much by all understanding what the habits were and performing accordingly. And they weren't perfect. They didn't do it perfectly, but they, a year from that point, had a waiting list of new applicants, and retention was down now to the low single digits when before it was in double digits. They literally created a reputation. Now, here's the thing that you have to understand. I'm talking about a year later. So that means not only did the culture change, but their reputation in the Silicon Valley changed enough to start creating the attraction of high performers that want to work in a culture that's supportive, that's growth oriented, that has integrity. It's got the values, but we didn't get there through values. We got there through looking at how people behave. Because at the end of the day, culture is not demonstrated, in values, in fact, are not demonstrated by what we say we're going to do. It's actually demonstrated by what we actually do. And that's what we want to get into today. So when I look at what is the root cause of the great resignation and quiet quitting, at the end of the day, it's really simple. It's stress, burnout, and overwhelm. People are just fried out there. They're fried from having to work virtually and not in person. Some people are fried because now they have to work in person and back at the office and get back to hour drives and things like that that are stressful. But it's also about all the change that's going on. It's about, all the number of priorities people are trying to handle, etc. So there's frustration from miscommunication and surprises of change. I just heard of this just last week. I'm working with a client, and corporate has decided, and this is their top performing division, the corporate has decided to take people from that division and move them to a new division that they hope will perform as well as the previous one. But guess what? They're taking the talent and they're not planning that. They're just literally removing talent as needed, which is keeps becoming a surprise to the organization that's leading their top performing, service and product. So it's kind of crazy. People are working so hard and at the same time not being successful. Well, why not? Well, because you can work really hard, but if management doesn't make a decision, that slows things up. If we're not getting the information we need on time, that causes breakdown. If we're doing our part, but the next functional area doesn't do their part, now we're still failing. And the whole point is I'm working hard, I'm spending extra time to feel the sense that we're not accomplishing what we set out to. Can't feel good. So I get discouraged, I get hopeless. Makes me question, do I want to work so hard? Oh, now I have quiet quitting coming into play. That's, people start coming up with a solution to these problems. Everything is a priority. Now, I know organizations set their 5 or 6 priorities, but how often do those change? How often are those priorities buckets of priorities? And so it still creates an overwhelm. And then I've got my priority, and then management says, oh, but this is now your priority. And then this is your priority. It's like, wait a minute, where's the consistency? And I don't mean that we obviously we have to be adaptable, but we can't just keep moving the target and expecting people to not feel like, hey, I just put in all this effort and you're stopping me 3/4 of the way through to focus somewhere else. But then later you're going to expect me to be on schedule with the previous priority. I mean, these things set us up for failure. And then most cultures today still feel like it's never good enough. It's just whatever you do isn't good enough. We're successful, but now we have to be more successful. We set targets, and that's not good enough. We set timelines, those aren't good enough. That's like, and then what happens is we end up in the blame game, which is to me the most awful thing, to be in an environment where things are felt as not good enough because we don't recognize success, we don't celebrate success, and then, what we do not celebrate, but what we do point out is mistakes, problems, breakdowns, etc., and then find who to blame for it. So that kind of culture is so discouraging, it's really an issue. Now, here's the question I have. What values actually solve those particular issues? What are the values that are going to solve miscommunication? Do you think having a value on communication creates communication? Do you think that values around teamwork is going to make it so that, we don't have the moving target of priorities? Like, what we're talking about here is issues of execution, not really issues of values. And again, I'm not suggesting that values don't have a place. They do. They just don't necessarily solve these kinds of issues, which stem first from how leadership is showing up. So where do we go from here? If it's not values, what determines culture? In my view, culture is determined not by what we say we're going to do, but by what we actually do. And that's why I say it's collective execution, not individual execution. It's actually collective execution. What collective execution means in really simple terms is how do we function with each other? How do we work with each other to achieve our business results? That's it. Because we have to serve customers. We have to make a profit. Great. How are we working together to be the most efficient, effective, service-driven organization possible? That's what our culture is. Regardless of what we say our values are, at the end of the day, it's how we're functioning together. And that means that we have a job to do around collective execution, which is how do we optimize sustainable business results and customer experience? What does that look like? Are we really focused on answering that question? Not only within a team, but between teams. And here's the thing that's interesting. When you optimize team habits of execution, and why am I bringing in the word habits and not even individual habits, team habits? Because again, it's always a collection of how we're working with each other. And why is it a habit? Habits are basically behaviors that have become so consistent that they're now automatic. I don't have to think about it to perform it. It's like brushing our teeth twice a day. Once in the morning, once at night. I don't think about doing it. I don't even have to have it on a checklist that I might have at first, but eventually I don't use a checklist to do it. I just know to do that. It's become my habit. And that's what gets me the results, whatever our habit is. For me, when I get up in the morning, I have this little drink with lemon juice and drink a glass of water. I didn't start that until about a year and a half ago, but now it's a habit. I just do it. I've got it right here. You can all see it. It's in my cup. And, I enjoy that. Habits are things that we can count on. Why do we need them to be habits that are automatic? Because in the midst of stress and overwhelm, we don't want to have to think about what's the right thing to do. We want to just do it. That's why every sports team, music group, dance company, theatrical group, anybody who has to perform in front of an audience practices those habits so that they get them down. That is what they do all the time. They don't talk about values nearly as much as they practice execution. So, what are we talking about here? What's really interesting is when you optimize your team habits of execution, by definition, you will represent your highest values. Now, I know this sounds like a stretch, but let me say again, when you optimize sustainable business results, not quarterly business results, not business results to get to the end of the month, none of that, sustainable business results, and we optimize what are the team habits of execution between us, between functions, within our own team that's going to optimize business results. You are definitely optimizing your values of trust, inclusive problem solving, speaking and acting with one voice so that we're not giving different messages from leadership to others, transparency. Tell me, proactive coordination, sharing resources across our teams, really having an ownership for the business success as well as customer experience, no matter what department we're in. When you are demonstrating all that to optimize the business, what are those? Those are your values. The problem is I can't make trust a value that we're going to go do if I don't know what it means to execute on it. Because trust in one department may look different than trust in another. Inclusive problem solving may look different in different parts of the organization. As an example, if you're in a medical center and you go into the emergency department, they are going to operate at a very different pace with their very different teamwork and decision making than if you go down the hall to the rehabilitation department, where that needs to be coordinated, that needs to take time. We need to go between the occupational therapist, the physical therapist, the physician, the nurse, all working together on a treatment plan. Very different than emergency, where someone dies if you don't respond fast enough. Very different kind of mini cultures within a larger culture. So that means we have to define, well, what does it mean for us to have teamwork? What does it mean for us to do inclusive problem solving? Very different. So that is the whole point. When you optimize the business, you're going to demonstrate values. Very cool to see that happen. Now, what's the culture test I give any organization? And it's really easy. It's kind of fun to think about. Usually, again, culture and business are thought differently. And when business is good, we're investing in the culture. We've got training programs on culture. We've got training programs on diversity, inclusion, anything that relates to culture. The problem is all of a sudden the business hits a downturn and now the business is struggling. What's the first thing that goes away? All the money we spend on culture has to be diverted back to saving the business. I mean, how many of us have seen that happen? But here's the real test of culture. When the business is struggling, do you use the culture to resolve the business challenges that are facing you, that are going to save the business? To me, the whole point of the culture is building in the resilience, building in the true habits of teamwork that everyone knows we need to do together, developing values, if you would, but really it's an execution of proactive recovery so that, hey, if there's a breakdown, we all know how we're going to get together and solve it together and move on. These are the things that really demonstrate whether your culture is healthy or not. It's how well does it respond in crisis. Now, some cultures, interestingly enough, only perform well in crisis. I mean, we've all seen that too. In a crisis, there's one mission. All of a sudden, ego drops so that we can all be focused on that one mission and we all work together. And now all of a sudden we're coordinating and communicating in ways we don't normally. But here's the problem with that. As soon as the crisis is over, now people go back to, oh, now we do things normally. My ego shows up. Now I get into my power struggles, my issues around sharing resources, my need to prove that our department is the best. And now all of a sudden it doesn't work again. So I look at it as, where do you have consistency between times when you're not in crisis to times when you are in crisis? How well is the culture actually resolving any business challenge that shows up? So then the question is, how do we get there? Promise everybody you'd have a strategy for doing this. And I want to really get to understanding, how do you build both high performance teams and high performance organizations? And honestly, you start at the end. What's the purpose? Desired outcomes, goals. What are we trying to accomplish? Then we move to the means. What's our strategy for doing it? How do we develop cascading accountability so that we've got accountability from the executives all the way down to the individual contributors, and we are clear on our priorities. From there, we then look at our coordination. This is where execution comes into play. Do we have aligned expectations between functional areas, within functional areas? Are we clear on the team habits that are going to literally create those aligned expectations? And do we have a system of proactive recovery so that when things break down, we know how to fix it rather than expecting perfection? And then, of course, it gets down to relationships. What are our communication? How well are we communicating? How well are we sharing information? How well are we working with our different styles? How have we developed trust and support? How are we managing conflict? All this makes perfect sense. This is nothing new to anybody. It's very logical. I might be using different words, but honestly, everybody probably knows this. But we need to take a deeper look at what's actually going on. So here's how this works. If your ends are not in alignment, if we can't get aligned on our purpose, our desired outcomes, our goals, and really be clear on what that is, by definition, your means of how to accomplish it, your coordination and your relationships will all be misaligned. There's no way that there won't be conflict, literally in the strategy and the priorities, in the coordination and the relationships. It's just obvious if we don't agree on the outcomes. Now, here's the good news. If we agree on the end, the next place that we could have disagreement is in the means, the strategy, the accountability, the priorities. And that's sometimes why we have too many priorities. That's sometimes why we don't have a clear strategy. So, if the means is out of alignment, by definition, coordination and relationships will be out of alignment. Just makes sense. If we're not clear on strategy, how are we possibly going to be clear on coordination? Yeah, it just doesn't work. And of course, we're going to have then conflict show up because of that misalignment. But here's the good news. If you're aligned on the ends and you're aligned on the means, the next area that can break down is coordination. And that means that we're clear on strategy, but we haven't clarified our expectations of each other. We don't know what the habits are for good problem solving, coordination, planning, decision making, etc. So now all of a sudden we are in battles at that level. And if that's going to take place, then by definition, you're going to have conflicts in the relationship. And of course, here's the good news. If you're aligned on ends, you're aligned on means, you're aligned on coordination, the very last place that you can have breakdown is in the relationships, because now all of a sudden it is our styles, our communication, our trust. Somehow we don't know how to, solve conflicts, etc. Again, this all makes perfect sense. But here's the question. At what level do all breakdowns get revealed? In other words, at which of these levels, ends, means, coordination, relationships, by definition of this model and how it works, at what level do all breakdowns show itself? And it's only one level, and it's always at the relationships. Now, why is that important? Because so far, every team building program that I've ever been in, I know groups that even do strategic planning, and they do it by starting with relationships. And the whole idea is we've got to build trust first. And here's the problem with that. If all the breakdowns show up at the relationships, but that's not where the root cause is, relationships and building trust and support is never going to be your solution, or rarely. Why is that? Because if we're not agreed on ends, or we're not agreed on means, or we haven't worked out our expectations, you could build trust all day long on a relationship basis, and it's not addressing the root cause. And that's the thing we all have to recognize, that starting with trust, starting with support between people in a relationship does not dictate how we're going to work together. And so when people start working together, conflicts show up. Now all of a sudden it erodes the trust. And that's why we have to really think differently about how we approach culture and change. So here's good news. And it's kind of good news and bad news. Most organizations are actually pretty good at defining and clarifying their ends. They get together, executives get together. Sometimes it's just plain obvious from the industry and the customers what's going on. We set up what our purpose is, our desired outcomes, our values, our goals, all the ends that we're trying to accomplish. Generally, most organizations are good at. And I would suggest that even the means, the strategy, most organizations today are doing a pretty good job at developing strategy and understanding cascading accountability, which is emphasized by the 4 disciplines of execution. They, many other books are talking about how we translate accountability from the top all the way to the individual contributor. The problem begins with the fact that organizations are generally not very good at setting priorities and sticking to them. But then here's what happens. They then jump down to relationships. And let's go. Here's our strategy. Here's what we're accountable for. Here's our priorities, at least the way we're stating them, whether there's too many or a moving target or not. And now let's work on their communication. Let's understand each other's styles. Let's look at how we can trust and support each other and have skills on managing conflict that we get, and all those wonderful things. They are good, great knowledge, but guess what? It's not actually addressing execution. And therefore, we're never solving the problem. What's the missing piece? We've got to start clarifying the coordination the expectations between groups that breaks down silos, the expectations within a team, which turn into our team habits, our cross-functional team habits, our functional team habits, how we're going to recover when there's a problem, so that we start building those things that actually affect relationships. Because if you aren't behaving well with each other, of course it's going to create conflict. I've often said to organizations, to leaders within organizations, I get that you have too many conflicts, and so you want to bring in a class to help people understand how to resolve conflicts. But why aren't we looking at what are causing those conflicts in the first place? Why don't we actually lessen the number of conflicts so that we don't have to deal with conflict resolution as often as we seem to need to? Then it's not about conflict resolution. It's about, we've actually eliminated the breakdowns, the miscoordination, the non-inclusive planning, the isolated problem solving that solves a problem in one area and creates three more. Why don't we start working on that? And that's why we emphasize coordination so much in trying to truly change a culture in a meaningful way. And it's kind of cool because there's ways to do this, very effectively. So what does that look like? We have to change mindset. We have to change people's consciousness. They have to get away from being just focused on me, protecting me, to how we become more we-centered. How do I start being more purpose-driven, thinking about what our customers truly need as a purpose, and how do we make our organization as successful as possible? I don't represent my job, my department, my team. I actually represent the whole organization. That's an ownership that I don't see in most organizations. How do we then develop the habits that support the new mindset? Because if we don't create the habits to carry it out, it's just a nice philosophy. Changing mindset is a philosophy until you put behavior to it. Unfortunately, you could change behaviors, but if you don't have a different way of thinking about it, all you're doing is going through the motions, not necessarily getting a transformational result. So what we want to do now is take a look at what's the mindset, what's the collective behaviors or team habits that are going to optimize business and culture. Not business or not culture, business and culture. So what I like to do is actually stop sharing now and show you kind of some ways to think about this, both from a mindset and a habits standpoint. So I'm going to stop sharing. Hi. And I'm going to turn to my flip chart here. And I'm going to talk about how organizations tend to work right now. Because what most organizations do is they set themselves up in a normal structure, hierarchical structure that says we've got an HR department, an operations department, a marketing department, finance, IT, and everyone thinks that their job, if they're leading their HR department, this could be the VP of HR, could be the CHRO, doesn't matter. We think that our job is, how do I optimize my department? How do I make operations the best it can be? How do I optimize marketing? How do I optimize my finance department, my IT department? I work within my groups to do that. And then we end up in, obviously, kind of conflicts between each other, because you optimizing yours is different than me optimizing mine. And now we have different priorities and different expectations. And that's where we get into trouble. What we're suggesting here is that you are all part of one organization. We have to elevate our mindset. We have to elevate our thinking to now going up to the top of this triangle. Now, what you notice at the top of the triangle is everything merges. Like, you can't see the difference between the different departments. Here you can, but not here. Consciousness is higher. But guess what? Who always has this perspective? Your customers. Some people say the CEO. Sometimes the CEO has it, sometimes they don't. I'm working with a CEO in one company where everything is about finance. So they don't invest in marketing for growth. They're only looking at profitability, and it's literally undermining the organization. So customer experience at the end of the day is what your purpose is, and profitability, because you can't do it if you go out of business. Very simple stuff. Now, if this is where we're trying to go, we need everybody here to start operating as if they're up here. What does that mean? You've got shared ownership, shared accountability for customer experience and profitability. This is what should drive decision making. This is what drives resource allocation. This is what drives culture. Do we have a culture that's going to create the optimized version of customer experience and profitability? Now, here's where the difference lies. When I have a recommendation that's going to better my functional area, I usually take it to upper management, who's going to make the decision to then support that. They're really not looking at necessarily how that's going to impact everybody else. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But the point is, I'm still thinking in terms of what am I doing to optimize my area. Here's the misunderstanding. If you optimize every department, you go out of business. Literally. Why? Because you don't have enough resources to do that. Can you imagine optimizing IT? I'd love it. It would be really fun. Well, actually, I wouldn't love it. I'm not an IT guy. In fact, I'm too old. But most people are going to love the IT. I want to get all the bells and whistles. Yeah, you don't have the money to do that. Oh, the next generation that comes out, let's buy that. That's never going to work. You optimize marketing. Great. How much are you going to spend on that? And now today you can spend tons of money and not necessarily see a result on that. So the point of this is you're not there to optimize your department. What you're there to do is optimize the organization's success and then translate that to your department. And if everybody does that, let's optimize here, let's get aligned here and translate that down. Now, all of a sudden, I might have to literally, in some cases, not achieve some goals here in support of the organization. I might have to sub-optimize my own department in service to the organization. And we see that happen. But it's done in coordination. The next year, we might have to go back and optimize it relative to where we're going. But see, it's always different based on what does the organization need, but we're thinking at the top of the triangle, not at the bottom. Huge mindset shift that for many of the organizations I work with their leadership teams, whether you're talking about senior management or middle management, and quite honestly, for me, it's even a bigger shift for middle management to start thinking less about just operating down here and more about how is what you're doing supporting the whole organization. That's talk about a leverage point. That's one of them right there. Then how do we actually do that? How do we implement this new mindset in behaviors? Well, we do it by looking at three things in particular. So we're always having to address the fact that business results, which includes the customer, includes profitability, is what we're all accountable for. This is the game right here. So now the question is, how do we do that? Well, most organizations, again, are pretty good at part of this. We're really good at setting up what are my projects, what are the outcomes that my team needs to accomplish, whether it's a cross-functional team or a functional team, doesn't matter. It could be matrix, could be doesn't matter. What do we need to accomplish? Because it's ultimately those outcomes that are going to deliver those business results. But then we turn our attention away from the projects we have and go right to relationship and say, okay, now let's improve trust and support and communication and look at all those things, which closely relates to our values, that closely relates to people satisfaction. The problem is these are not directly connected. They're only directly connected when you're highly dysfunctional. When you're really dysfunctional, then yeah, you have to deal with the relationship, problems that came from that dysfunction. And if you improve those relationships, yes, you're going to get a little bit more functional, but it's never going to get you to high performance, because that's not what defines high performance. Relationships, we've all been there. How many times have we been in a team or an organization that has good relationships, but we're not performing? Everybody gets along. I trust the person next to me. We support each other when there's a problem, but we're not hitting our targets. So these two are not directly related. What's the missing piece? The missing piece is right here. Again, what we call the team habits. These behaviors that we are consistently showing up day in and day out. This team habits, which again, let's just define what some of those are. It's the habit of how do we set priorities, the habit of how do we plan in an inclusive way, how do we make decisions that include the impact of our decisions on other departments, that also includes problem solving, because no matter how well you plan it, problems are going to show up. Do we have a proactive recovery that we've already agreed on? Do we have cross-functional problem solving so that, and can we do that in a way that isn't consensus management that says everybody has to agree all the time? That's not effective. Again, it's not principle driven, it's business driven. We have to make fast decisions and we have to be inclusive. It's not one or the other, it's an and. And that's the thing we find when we're operating at the top of the triangle in the previous page. It's an and, not an or. So we have to look at how are we performing all these, because that is what's going to drive your team outcomes. In fact, here's the funny part. Well, organizations are focused on leading metrics, leading indicators. That's how we're going to know that we can adjust for the trailing metrics that we're all accountable for. We set up leading indicators. You know what? That's actually slow. Yeah. Execution is what creates every leading indicator. How we work together. That's why sports teams, while everybody talk metrics on sports teams, in reality, what do they do in practice? Practice their execution. You can't change a metric without executing differently, personally or collectively. It's just a true statement. It's your execution that drives your team outcomes. Well, don't I want to then surface where team execution is breaking down, that result in my leading indicators, that then result in my trailing indicators that are up here? Absolutely. This is where you start to get ahead of the game. But here's the point that's so interesting. And I didn't know this at first, quite honestly. I started in the game of relationships lead to good execution, lead to outcome. Doesn't work that way. Every sports team, they don't work on relationships first. They get on the field and start working out their plays. They work out their expectations. Same with music groups. Same with dance companies. I build my trust through understanding what my expectations are, how we relate to each other to perform, and being accountable for doing that. And so we have to get at the heart of this. But here's the cool part. Once I know what my expectations are, once I know what I'm expected to do for solving a conflict, for solving a problem, for including someone else when I'm making a decision, now all of a sudden relationships go up automatically. Why? Because I know what trust means. See, there's a difference between relationship trust and execution trust. Two different things. I worked in an organization where relationship trust was super high. It was a rural medical center, about, 1,800 people, but everybody grew up with each other. Most people were friends with each other in many cases, at least circles of people. In fact, people married each other. They're so close, which might cause more conflict. But anyway, we won't go there. But the point is that they had a solid level of relationship trust. People would leave their doors open to have their neighbors come over, invite them for dinner. Relationship trust was high. Execution trust couldn't be lower. Well, I don't trust you to keep commitments. You're not including me in communication. You're not sharing information openly. So execution trust was different than relationship trust. That's the problem here. Do I need to understand your style if what I'm really trying to do here is accomplish certain behaviors to achieve these results? Style really doesn't matter. You have to sometimes adjust your style to meet the needs of the situation. Ask any ball player, ask any musician. It's not about what you enjoy doing, what's easy to do. It's what do you need to do to perform the song? What do you need to do to perform the play? And it's not like, well, it's not my style to do that. No, I'm sorry. You got to, if my favorite throw is a sidearm, but I'm 5 feet from you and I throw it, you're not going to catch it. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It's not about style. Although, do we want to be able to acknowledge other styles? Do we want to know that people do work differently? Absolutely. So you can still be your style as long as you're meeting the needs of the habits that are going to produce the results. And that drives it. But the point of this is, at the end of the day, relationships go up when execution goes up. So now you have a win-win. Your outcomes improve because we're addressing the issues that are going to produce those outcomes. And your relationships improve, all at the same time. When we work with teams and organizations, we literally will not do anything to address. We assess their team relationships. We measure this. The team habits, and we measure, of course, your outcomes. And we're generally working here and here. When we do that, team relationships generally will improve on average on 15 variables, anywhere from 15 to 35%. Average all 15, without ever talking about relationships. And that's exactly what clients say. They say, God, we've been focused on relationships. You guys are the first group that don't focus on relationships, but you're also the first group where our relationships improve so significantly. I go, yeah, because that's not the source of the problem. If you go back to the ends, means, ordination, relationships, this is the bottom. This is what are you trying to drive in priorities? And team habits are all about the coordination. That's why it's working. We're pretty clear on this. We don't do this. When you start doing the team habits, now all of a sudden you're hitting the very thing that we need to figure out, even priorities, because you've got to have habits that are going to work when priorities keep coming at you and change keeps coming at you in a way that's going to do what? That's going to support your customer experience and your profitability. This is your North Star right here. So now that I've had a chance to go through this, I hope that makes sense. I've got one more little thing for you. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen for a moment because I want to demonstrate what does a habit look like. And I want to just share a habit so that you really get to see what this looks like in real life. So let's just call it effective, timely, and inclusive decisions, because that's one of the big breakdowns in organizations today. Everybody seems to have trouble with it. It's either too much input, too much consensus building, which takes forever to make a decision. And then, like I was working with an organization just last week, or earlier this week, actually, it wasn't last week, it was this week, where they said, yeah, we take a month to make a decision, and then they give us 3 days to a week to implement it. It's like, what? Why aren't we taking more time to implement? Why do we think that the making the decision is where the success is? It's not. It's in the execution of the decision. Anyway, so this group, and this is a real one. This is a real team habit. So this was a group of people. Again, it's not individual. It's a group that have to work together to produce an outcome. Here was their habit. We proactively include others impacted in the decision-making process, agree on criteria and a method for getting closure in a timely manner. So how do we do that? We got to make sure we're all on the same page. Are we talking about the same thing by having a clear criteria? And what method is going to speed this up? We also anticipate the impact of our decision on the organization strategy, other departments, employees, and customers. Like, we're not just thinking about the problem we're solving that the decision is going to address. We're actually looking at the implications. We establish a unified communication plan for sharing the decision with others. How many times have you seen teams make great decisions, but because they don't have an aligned way to share it, it creates breakdown, conflict, confusion. And yet the team is actually aligned, but no one thinks they are because they never plan the communication. They don't speak with one voice. They don't act with one voice. And then finally, we monitor the effectiveness of our decision through implementation and modify it as needed. Not to rehash, no rehashing. I don't know if did I even say that in here? Yeah, we don't rehash decisions or individually make our own modification. No, this is aligned. And we assess ourselves. How well do we do that? So here's a question for all of you who are listening in. For the team that you're working on, or for maybe a client of yours if you're another consultant, think about one of those teams. How many of them perform super well on all 5 of those? Because you rate all of them together. And if you were to rate down on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 says, oh yeah, we're always doing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 on here. That would be a 5. 1 says, yeah, we don't really do that, or we're really inconsistent. We do it sometimes in pockets. That would be a 1. How would you rate the team that you're working on? And that's a subjective rating, but guess what? That subjective rating has a lot to do with whatever your outcomes are. Because the next question I have is what's the impact of not getting this right? What are the breakdowns that affect your business outcomes? What are the breakdowns that affect morale and culture? How can you possibly demonstrate values if this is breaking down? Like, these are all the questions you want to ask. So when we work with organizations, we again assess in the team habits, we give it a rating. We use a 1 to 7 scale, but every habit is rated so that we're constantly monitoring. And if we have to change a habit, we change it. Why do we change a habit? To achieve a business result, to improve our culture of effectiveness and consistency in delivering to customers. That's how we do this. So hopefully this gives you an idea about the overarching concepts, the strategy, and then what are the elements of making this actually real on the ground in terms of reality. And most of what I just talked about, you can find in B-State or Reimagine Teams. Those are both hit it directly, a little more indirectly, but it talks about organizational change and accountability is the 3rd book in the row, and then personal is the blue one. But I'm really also open to reaching out to me, and I'm certainly open to turning it over to Joerg for Q&A. And oh my gosh, look at that. I hit this thing on the, I was planning on 2 hours. Thank goodness for that. It's only 30 minutes, which was what I was told I had. I can't even believe it myself.
Well,
And just for the
Yes,
audience that's out there, thank you. I know they said, God, you got to make it look like
yes.
we've got thousands and hundreds of thousands of people online. Thank you, everybody. Okay. I joke. I like to kid. Can't take everything so seriously.
Well, that's good actually. So I just want to take a few minutes. I know that we are at time, and if anybody has to leave, I mean, obviously that's very understandable. But we'll just I just like to open it up for some comments, some questions of whoever can stay. I just want to resonate with two things that I think you're doing here that are really important. One is around this idea of culture, or I think the fundamental idea that you're offering here is let's stop confusing symptom with cause.
Yeah.
So let's just because we feel that we need to do something around culture doesn't mean we have to doctor around on whatever has culture in its name, right?
Yeah.
Let's actually understand how this phenomenon of culture truly works. How culture and you centering, in a sense, the idea of collective habits is so fundamental to culture. And let's focus on that, and then understand that however we describe and experience culture is an outcome of that, is not, but we don't start with the description of culture as a starting point. And you're doing the same thing when it comes to actually relationships, right? Just because relationships are oftentimes the way we experience dysfunction or problems, that doesn't mean that we now need to jump on and fix relationships when actually we're dealing with issues of coordination or execution. But you're giving us a diagnostic framework to actually, as either practitioners, consultants, or leaders, to actually change our practice, right? Our practice to actually move culture, and obviously values have a role, but
yes,
we don't create cultural change or transformation or alignment or we solve any problems when we focus on values. So this is just my own reaction here a little bit. I also, by the way, the second point, I also like the idea, that's how it ties into inclusive leadership for me, that this raising of consciousness and the ability to transcend these silos or so is so much part of inclusiveness, right? In fact, inclusiveness, if it has anything in common, is to transcend divisions that we either mentally make about where people come from and who people are, or the functions they represent, or the structures that we have created, to work across that and enable greater levels of performance or resilience, actually, in many cases. And this is the anthropological thought in me and the brain. My own training is that culture has a role in human evolution. Culture plays the role of securing our resilience. But if we don't keep it flexible and responsive enough, it also can spell out our essential demise. So it's in how we keep the ability alive to evolve our culture. And to me, what you're articulating is actually an extraordinarily clear articulation of what we need to keep in mind and what we need to actually focus on. And here is the first question that came in from somebody, from one of the audience, asking, can leaders learn this to do themselves and apply this themselves, or do they need Mark to come in and create breakthroughs? And I know that you're not discouraging people to bring you in, but I think the question is really deep. Is that not, from your perspective, the way we want to train and develop leadership? Is that not an essential framework for cultivating what it means to lead?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, no, it's not dependent on me, because again, this is a process. It's an approach. It's not me coming in or my team coming in necessarily at all. But what I would say is, I just on a practical term, if you will, it's really good if you have change agents in your organization that are trained and developed in this kind of thinking and this kind of strategy, because the problem is, even when I'm trying to build my team, I need to have a consultant who's not in the team helping me to do it, because I'm going to be limited by my own beliefs, my own thinking, my own way of doing things. And I need someone that's going to help. Like my role with leadership, even the people that bring me in, is I'm not here to just meet your need. I'm here to take you to the next level. And that means getting you out of your comfort zone as well. And, a lot of times that means, for leaders, it's how do you stop micromanaging? How do you stop getting involved? How do you set up choices that give people accountability? And how do you set up clear expectations around what success looks like, so that then people can go do it, rather than directing activity, which is a lot of times what leaders do. So no, it is not dependent on me. And I love it when leaders can do this on their own. And many times they will do it on their own. But I think the best thing, if an organization can do it, even if they're smaller, even just have one person that knows how to do this, that then can play that devil's advocate, that can play the facilitator, so that as a leader, I can participate fully and not be facilitator and participant, which gets very confusing for the team members.
Yeah. And here is a question that, that I think is interesting, and this relates to this. It's almost like cultivating, because you use the analogy of a sports team, right? I mean, so let's say they are, and I'm interpreting from the question now. So the sports team has a certain luxury that there is a game, right? And there's the game has a date to it, or an orchestra has an evening performance or whatnot. So we actually can take the afternoon to rehearse and practice those habits, right? Those collective habits. In business, oftentimes you may not have that room to practice, right? That refinement. So how do you kind of, what do you do in a business context to create the same effect?
Yes, I love this question, because it's the biggest, what I would call, objection that we hear from most people when they talk about this. And I'm comparing to sports teams and music groups, dance companies, etc. Well, the fact is, we actually do have that time. The problem is we're misusing the time. So think in terms of all of your meetings. How many people are just going crazy because I'm going to meeting after meeting after meeting? And, I don't know, I've estimated from talking to different groups that 30% of what they hear in a meeting is duplicated. Like they hear the same thing in different meetings. Meetings are not for the purpose of sharing information and just communication. Yet that's how we do. Oh, status updates. Like, what a friggin' waste of time. You can get that in many different ways besides bringing people together. What's the point of bringing people together? Solve problems, remove obstacles, make decisions. Like, that's the purpose of your meeting. But how many meetings are actually solving the problems that remove the obstacles that keep people from being successful? Well, that is when you talk about execution. No, we don't get on a field to do it like a sports team. We get in the meeting room and say, wait a minute, you need to communicate at this point, not at this point. You need to include me in this decision, not exclude me in it. Like, that's where we actually work on the execution. But it's done through problem solving and removing obstacles. We say that every meeting should have, at least, not every, but these kinds of meetings should have 65 to 70% of your meeting focused solely on problem solving that removes obstacles. And that by doing that, you're focused on execution.
Yeah. And it seems to me that this is a great tweak to how we meet and our expectations of meetings. And we may need to install some internal monitor, right? I mean, I call it sometimes, I mean, it's not a good word, but a kind of a cultural monitor. It's not an ogre that looks, but it's somebody who almost institutionalized this perspective that you're sharing to continuously ask this question. are we using our meetings that way? Because we can slip, just how cultures drift, right? In many organizations, and that's, you know, I mean, our collective practices can drift, or our collective habits can drift and erode. So somebody needs to almost institutionalize that consciousness of what you're talking about here, in order to say,
Yes.
oh, I think we are deviating a little bit, or we are slipping somehow. And while people can also do it when they're participating in something, it's so much easier for somebody from the outside, maybe a coach of sorts, right?
Yes.
But a coach to the collective, not the
Right.
individual.
Well, and you're bringing up such an important point, because am I showing up at the meeting at the bottom of the triangle, or am I showing up to the meeting at the top? If I'm at the bottom of the triangle and one of my teammates has a breakdown, that's not my problem. So I disengage and get back to my phone where I can get real work done, or my computer. Whereas, wait a minute, how come we're not using the people outside the problem to help solve the problem? Because they're not in it, therefore they have more objectivity and creativity to bring to it.
That's right.
That, you know, it's like shared ownership means that's all of our, if there's a problem, it's all of our problems, not just the person where the problem is showing up. That's a whole different mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think, I mean, there's a lot of people have resonated with what you're saying, you know, so informative and useful. And the question, is that your next book? And you already answered the question, well, that it's already sprinkled throughout your books, but that doesn't preclude that it could be your next book. And I mean, just a lot of appreciation for this perspective and that lens that you offer. I know we are beyond our time, so that's why I'll just leave it there. Any final thoughts you would want to offer, and then we'll close our session for today.
The only thing I would offer, and it's something that people sometimes don't realize, is that everything that I talked about today is not just for organization. It's also for our families. It's also for our community. How are we making sure that we're all at the top of the triangle relative to our family, as opposed to being worried about my part of the family? Mm-hmm. And how are we all working together for what our purpose as a family is? How are we doing that within our community to create safety, to create respect, to create inclusion? Because it's how we want to experience life within our group. You know, it's like, and when you talk about diversity, Joerg, we've talked about this before, I look at every single person as being diverse, mm-hmm. not based on any category of any kind. It's just within a category, every individual is diverse. And in fact, I have diversity even within myself. And sometimes those are competing that I have to sort out. So, you know, it's like, that's where we have to just keep raising the game of how are we looking at things. And it's all about survival is going to happen together, not separately.
I love that as a final thought, and that's precisely why I think this is so almost at the very core of what we're trying to achieve through our focus on inclusive leadership, because that's what it is. There is an internal, a self component to that idea of inclusiveness, because we have diversity within us, and there is that external focus on our communities, our families, and the organizations that we work within.
Yes.
And this raising or shifting of consciousness and aligning it to our collective practices and practicing those, right?
Yes.
You know, is
living
to me such an essential mechanism at the core of all of this.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for you know, for sharing this with us. Yeah. Thank you for you know, framing this for us. And also, I need to say, this is the final session of our Spotlight, our first season of Spotlight sessions. And it is such a beautiful way of bringing that first season to a close, because a lot of what you've said really applies to some of the other topics we've said, but it really gets to the heart and the core of what we are all about, namely to advance and promote the idea of inclusive leadership, the art and science of it. And you've just helped us put a really big centerpiece in place as we are doing that. So thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome, Joerg. And again, thank you for inviting me. It's been an honor to work with you and your team. I just so appreciate you and the work you're putting out into the world as well with your inclusive leadership. Outstanding.
Thank you. And thanks for joining our spotlight today and staying those extra minutes. That means a lot to us as well. So thank you.